What is up everyone, Movie Worm back again with another video, and today is going to be my favourite horror movie from each horror subgenre. And this is a community tag that's been going around the past couple of weeks, and I was praying that I would get tagged. And I want to say a big thank you to Aidan Flanagan for tagging me in this video. His channel is The Movie Insider, and I will leave the link to his channel down below. It's a great channel. I advise you to get over there. But the reason I wanted to get tagged in this is I've just loved horror since a kid, and I love it as an adult. It's always been my favourite genre, always will be. I watch anything horror related, horror comedy, play horror survival video games. I love the damn holiday Halloween. So yeah, anything horror related is right up my street. And I just want to say, for each subgenre, if your favourite movie doesn't make that subgenre as my favourite, it doesn't mean anyone's right or wrong. It's just personal to me. So yeah, we've got werewolf, slasher, zombie in here. There's 10 different categories, so let's just get into it with the first one. So the first one is slasher. Now, I done a bit of humming and hawing here. Is it going to be Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors? And it just clicked. The greatest horror movie of all time, in my opinion, and that is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now, questionable to be a slasher movie, but I think it is. I mean, there's a guy going around with a chainsaw, wielding it at everyone he faces and just killing these teenagers off one by one. And this does, in fact, open with 5 teenagers, like these slasher movies do. They're all there to be dead meat in the end, really. And they find this house, they come across this house in the middle of nowhere, really, in the outback of Texas. And unfortunately for them, a man called Leatherface lives there with his deranged family, and this Leatherface character is now one of the most iconic horror movie villains of all time. He wears human faces for masks, for God's sake. Do you need to know any more than that? But what I love about this movie is the way Tobe Hooper directs it. He almost documents the movie in a very gritty style, and it's so grainy that it works for the better. I mean, if you watch this on VHS or DVD, you're probably going to get a better experience, even though the Blu-ray is really, really good as well. But what scares me about this movie more than anything is the realism. I mean, that's what scares me about horror. Realistic things, because there's nothing more scary than real life. This is based on the true story of Ed Gein, and I would not put it past anyone to be in the outback of Texas right now doing cannibalistic things and killing people. You just wouldn't put it past anyone, because humans can be the darkest of creatures, let's be honest, and this film shows just that. So for the slasher genre, I've gone with the 1973 film The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Next up, we have zombie, which is probably the most popular subgenre along with slasher, especially these days. I mean, we got quite a few zombie movies in the 70s and 80s, but from like the 2000 onwards, it really picked up again. I mean, you got Shaun of the Dead, 28 Days Later, 2 Zombieland movies, and they're still being made today. We've got Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead coming soon, and we've had a ton of video games like it as well, you know, like Dead Rising and stuff. And that took inspiration from my pick here, which is Dawn of the Dead from George A. Romero. Now, he had a very solid trilogy. I know he's made more movies than this, but that 3 trilogy of zombie movies, Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and Day of the Dead, were absolutely phenomenal. And I'm going with the middle one here, Dawn. Now, this basically takes place in a shopping mall, and I think that is a perfect location for a zombie movie, because these characters just hole themselves up in the corner there of the ceiling, and they just go into the shopping mall whenever they need supplies and stuff, killing lots of zombies on the way. And it's a really, really fun, entertaining movie from start to finish. I love the togetherness of these characters as the movie goes on. They bring out nicknames for each other and stuff, like Flyboy. And you've got Ken Rockmore from Keenan and Kel sniping zombies in the head. What more do you want? And that guy in this movie comes out with lots of different quotes. I believe his real name is Ken Furry, and he's great in this movie. He's just this really solid character, as are all 4. And you don't really, you know, the zombies are in there, but they face a bigger threat later on in the film, and the motorcycle gang come in and wreck their little location that they've got going on, this good thing they've got going. It's just a ton of fun, this movie. There's lots of gore and blood everywhere, The only little niggle I have is the way the zombies look. I mean, they're like kind of spray painted blue, but you gotta look past that. If you're from the younger generation now and you see that, you might be turned off a little bit because zombies look great in movies now, but you can't let that sway you because you'll be depriving yourself of a fantastic zombie movie. So for zombie, I've gone with Dawn of the Dead. Just had to be, didn't it? Next up, we got vampire, and this was the easiest category of all for me because how could I go with anything else other than The Lost Boys? This is a movie I have watched over and over again. I've seen it more times than most movies. I mean, if I was going to do a top 10 list of the movies I've watched more than anything, this would be around 5 or 4, something like that. I just love it to death. I mean, I've got so much nostalgia for this film. It's one of the very first horror movies my mum and dad let me watch, and I've watched it over and over again. You know, when you're younger and you just have a select few VHS tapes, like 20 or 30, this is one that I watched over and over. I watched it so many times as a teen, and I watch it now and again, because this is such a fun film. This follows two brothers who move to this new town, Santa Carla, and there's missing people posters everywhere, and all these murders have happened, and they can't quite get to the bottom of it, and it's just a mysterious town. But we soon meet up with David, played by Kiefer Sutherland, who is leading this motorcycle gang of vampires, and they, of course, are causing mayhem across the town at night. But it's just got so many great characters in this movie. Like I said, the two brothers and David and his gang are just great, but there's got the Frog Brothers in there who are just vampire hunters, but they're little nerds who own this comic book store. And you've got the grandpa. I mean, every line he delivers in this movie is gold. But it's got everything you want from an 80s movie in there. A killer soundtrack, killer costume design, mullets all over the place. You gotta watch The Lost Boys. Like Dawn of the Dead, entertaining from start to finish. Such a fun movie. And who can forget that song? I Still Believe. What a song that is. So, yep, for vampire, easy pick for me, The Lost Boys. Up next, we have Werewolf. Now, I know some of you are going to be thinking that I'm going to pick American Werewolf in London. And if you asked me about 2 years ago, I probably would have picked that. But something else has just pipped it, which I was kind of new to. I watched it for the first time last year. And that is The Wolfman from 1941, starring Lon Chaney Jr. Now, the reason I put this above American Werewolf in London is I just felt like I was watching a piece of cinema history. I mean, I've only seen the thing once, but it's just got everything a werewolf movie should have. I mean, all those stereotypes, really. Before you go into a werewolf movie, you're thinking full moons, howling noises. It's all in there, but it works so well. I mean, the cinematography here is just everything that a classic horror movie should have. Lon Chaney Jr. is great in this role as the Wolfman. The transformation scene is nowhere near American Werewolf in London's level, of course, but it was made 40 years earlier. But I just love the story in this. There's a little romance going on, and I just really just think that as a werewolf movie, this just works in every single department. It ticks every werewolf movie box, and it's just really fun. And like I said, a piece of movie history. It just felt like I was watching an absolute classic. One that you can throw on definitely around the Halloween holidays. It's just got horror written all over it. So it just picked it. I mean, I was kind of in two minds, but I do think The Wolfman is a better overall movie. So for Werewolf, I had to go with The Wolfman from 1941. Next up is Home Invasion. Now, this was a really hard one to pick from, actually. I was racking my brains for a while, and then it just hit me. I had to go with this one. The People Under the Stairs, a gem from Wes Craven. Now, this is the subgenre turned on its head a little bit here, and I will explain why. But Fool, this young boy, whose mother is dying of ill health, really, and he wants to get money for her healthcare, and his friend Leroy decide to rob their landlord's house because they all live on the same block, and this landlord is overcharging them. They're living in a poor state, and they're just rich as hell. They hear that they've got some gold hidden in the landlord's basement and stuff. So Fool and Leroy decide to go and rob him and get their own back. So they've heard some stories about this family and stuff, so obviously they wait for them to go out, and as they are in the house, what do you think happens? Yes, the family come back. And this is where the subgenre of home invasion is turned on its head, because it's usually the people breaking into the house causing ill will to the residents. But no, it's the people who run the house here turn on them in a bad way. Now, this family are absolutely crazy. There's cannibalistic things going on with them. They've kidnapped people who live in the walls. And the male member of this family, the older dad character type, if you like, dresses up in this sort of gimp suit and starts hunting the fool and Leroy around the house with this rifle. It's crazy. It's a bit of a horror comedy, but there's some deranged things happening here. I mean, they've got this young kid who they've never allowed out the house, and at one moment in this movie, she is thrown into a scalding hot bathtub, and every time I see it, I wince. I just think, oh my God, how could someone do that to someone? It's a really interesting movie, and if you haven't seen People Under the Stairs, I highly recommend it. So, like I said, a gem from Wes Craven. So that is my pick for a home invasion. Next up is foreign. Now, this is an interesting one because you can pick subgenre within a subgenre here. I mean, there is foreign zombie films, foreign vampire films, foreign slashers, and there's so many to pick from. Martyrs was a great one. I just want to give that an honourable mention. The Wailing, which I watched just last month, I thought it was great, but I have gone with a zombie flick here. Now, if Dawn of the Dead didn't exist, this will be my pick for zombie movies. However, it is the second greatest zombie horror movie for me, but that is Train to Busan. I watched this for the first time last year and was absolutely blown away. This is one of the most fast-paced movies you'll ever see. And I suppose it has to be fast-paced because it takes place on a train and it just fits the location. Now, like Dawn of the Dead, the shopping mall, I love the location of that, and I love this movie being based on a train. And for some reason, I've always just liked movies that are based on a train, but when it's a zombie flick done like this, oh my God, it just works. As soon as this train leaves the station, a zombie outbreak happens, and it sort of pours onto the train, and these characters have to get from one end of the train to the other. But it's all about the human element as well. I mean, humans can be worse than these zombies at times, and it's all about, who you can trust and, what type of characters are in the movie and how they all work together. If you get me, I mean, there's a lot of interesting characters in this movie, but there's some absolutely vile human beings as well, and you'll see as you watch the film. If you haven't seen Train to Busan, I highly recommend it. There's some great moments involving violent action shots and stuff where these characters are fighting the zombies. There's a lot of gore in there, but it's got a good emotional attachment with this father and daughter as well, right at the main front there. So Train to Busan, highly recommended zombie movie, and one that just absolutely blew me away, and I could find very few flaws with. So my pick for foreign horror is Train to Busan. Next up is torture porn. Now, I had a hard time picking this one because to me, torture porn is just trashy movies that are made to shock you and nothing else. But I suppose the film I have picked kind of started it. And that is Saw, of course. Now, I felt bad putting this in this category because it's so much more than that. It's a brilliant crime thriller horror movie. One of the best horror movies ever made to me. But I suppose there's quite a few mental torture scenes in this. I mean, Jigsaw puts these people in scenarios and they've got to get out of it in virtually impossible ways. But if they do get out of it, they are probably going to appreciate their life much more, and they are in there for a reason. And Jigsaw actually wants them to get out of it. He wants them to appreciate their blessings and stuff. But if they don't, some bad things will happen. I mean, there's a character who has got a candle and he's full of oil and he can't spill any of it, but the candle's got to go out, so he's sort of got to rush and he'll go up in flames if he rushes too much. There's the Venus flytrap, how can you forget that? But to me, what I love about this movie is the mystery aspect to it. I mean, these two characters are chained in a bathroom and they can't get out. They've got to figure out why they're there, who put them there, and how to get out of there. But there's all little clues in the room and stuff, and as a viewer, I love guessing what's going on, but I never seen that ending coming in a million years. And to me, this is the greatest ending in a movie of all time. I just love it to death. No spoilers, but the reveal at the end is absolutely amazing. It's absolute perfection the way it's done and edited together. It's brilliant. So, yeah, I put Saw in this category, but I think it's a much better movie than just torture porn. But there you go. that is my pick for torture porn. Next up is Paranormal. Now, I was going to pick Insidious for this, but I went with a movie that creeped me out just a little bit more than that, and that is Sinister. This is the last movie I watched that really did terrify me. This stars Ethan Hawke and his family move into this house, and he discovers these tapes hidden in the attic there, and every time he watched one of these tapes, my skin was crawling. I mean, it creeped me the hell out. It was so disturbing to watch. And basically, these tapes are each family who's lived there before Ethan Hawke's family being filmed by someone hiding in the bushes and stuff, and then it'll cut to the family being tortured and eventually killed in very horrible, horrible ways. And when I was watching this, oh my god, I found it hard to look. I really did. I am never really scared with movies, but this one really did do something for me. And there's a whole paranormal aspect to it as well, which makes it a paranormal subgenre movie. But if you haven't seen Sinister, which I'm guessing most of you have now because it's gained a lot of traction in the horror community for being quite scary, definitely give it a go. But my pick for Paranormal, just picked Insidious, is Sinister. Next up is sci-fi horror. Now, I was going to pick Aliens for this, but I do believe that's more action and orientated, with horror elements, of course. But I've gone for a full-blown sci-fi horror here, and that is the first one, Alien. Now, this is a very, very atmospheric film from Ridley Scott. It's got a very, very slow build-up, but once shit kicks off, it's all worth it in the end. I mean, it's a very well put-together film. Some people will say this is a masterpiece, and rightly so. This follows a team who see a distress signal and go and follow it up. And when they get there, these eggs are on this planet, and one of them does hatch, and this spider-looking creature, which is called the facehugger, jumps on one of these astronauts called Kane, played by John Hurt, and impregnates him. And when they're at the dinner table and stuff, of course, this alien is allowed to run amok in one of the greatest movie scenes of all time. And what ensues, this alien starts to pick them off one by one. But what I like about this, Ellen Ripley is introduced as one of the greatest movie heroines of all time here. You don't quite know that she's going to be the protagonist because the movie doesn't actually focus on anyone. And she is one of the more unlikely characters to be, one of the main protagonist by the end. But that's what's so great about it. It keeps you sort of guessing the first time you watch it. And the xenomorph has a brilliant design. One of the best movie monsters created here in this film. And that xenomorph going off against Ellen Ripley in a game of sort of cat and mouse. Wow. I mean, this film is absolutely excellent. So I had to go with Alien for sci-fi horror. Damn, I want to revisit that movie now after talking about it. So my pick is Alien. Next up is found footage, one of my favourite subgenres in horror, because when this is done well, it can be terrifying. And I just want to give a honourable mention here to a film that I watched a couple of years ago now, and me and my fiance loved it, and that is Hell House LLC. This is a very, very underrated film. I think it's on Shudder and Amazon Prime right now. If you love found footage, please give that film a go. But of course, something else pipped it, and I had to go with this. The movie that terrified me more than anything, The Blair Witch Project. Now, this is basically just about a group of teens who get lost in the forest, and it's what you don't see that scares you. I mean, man, when I watched this film for the first time, I was tossing and turning in bed all night. The sweat was pouring off me. I couldn't get to sleep. It was like 5 in the morning. I still hadn't got to sleep because I could not get this film out of my head. I mean, just simple things where these group of characters are lost in the forest where this Blair Witch apparently is looming, this legend, this urban legend. And when they wake up, there's piles of rocks just built outside the tent. There's little symbols made on the trees and stuff. And I'm like, I thought they were alone in this forest, but something else is there with them. The ending is quite horrifying. And I'd never actually seen anything like this before when it come out, when I first seen it on VHS. And there was rumblings that it was real and stuff to promote the film, and it really, really did look real. I mean, to me, this was absolutely terrifying. So, yeah, the scariest movie I have ever seen, especially at the time. It's still scary now. The Blair Witch Project for found footage. Okay, guys, I hope you all enjoyed this video. What are your favourite horror movies from each subgenre? Leave your list down below. I'll try and get back to you all, I promise. And I do have to pick 5 YouTubers to do this. Now, you don't have to do this. If I pick you, don't worry. But I'm just trying to think of channels that love horror. So I'm going to go with Bryn from Horror Hands. Says it all in her name, doesn't it? Lauren from Lauren's Collection. I know she loves her horror. I'm going to go with Sinister Arts and Movies, Tony. The girl in the movie, his wife Danny. I'm going to go with Mondo Chelovic Movies, John Perry. So I'll leave all their channel links down below if you want to check them out. Hopefully they will put videos up to do with this, but I think then people will like to do this because I had such a fun time making this list. But like I said, guys, leave your choices down below. And if you want to subscribe, it's up to yourself. I've got a lot more top 10s and stuff coming, which I'll leave down below as well. So, yeah, take it all easy, guys. See you all in the next video.